sustainability doesn't have to be complicated because life is complicated enough.
Hello, hello. So happy to have Naama Nicotra today, the CEO and co-founder at Naked Pack.
My grandmother has the most sustainable lifestyle because she couldn't afford single-use things.
As entrepreneurs, we are very free people. Why we are free is because we can't blame anyone.
I don't buy the packaging, I buy the content.
The best packaging is no packaging.
Our food is naked. It comes with no clothes on it, no plastic, no paper. It's just naked.
How did Brooklyn 99 influence your design thinking?
It's not a regular name. You cannot just skip when you see the name.
So not only have you chosen to package the product, you've created products.
Pills that are wrapped with edible coating that we just consume. It's not like we're creating a new concept.
I personally feel it's an absolutely mind-blowing smart strategy.
The more you produce, the less you pay.
Most of us are coming from that purity of heart that we want to do something good.
I'm not worried about competitors. There is so much plastic to replace.
What does good garbage mean to you? Hello. Welcome to the Good Garbage Podcast. My name is Ved Krishna. My primary reason for existence has been to find ways to leave our wonderful planet cleaner. We will be speaking with material innovators, creators, and propagators to learn from them how we can build for scale and towards a regenerative future. Their stories will help us answer the big question, what is good garbage? Hello. So happy to have Naama Nicotra today, the CEO and co-founder at Naked Pack. And I'm so excited about this conversation, Naama, because of the revolution you're creating. And we're going to talk a lot more about it. But I want to start at growing up in Israel. Talk to me about what influenced you most to kind of, build your personality in the direction of sustainability.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be among the other people you invited to the podcast. So I feel in great company here. And I think there are two main things that led me to this position growing up in Israel. The first one is that since this region knew so many wars and challenges, I had the opportunity to gain experience in building new things. I did it in the military when I was an officer, and I did it during COVID here in Israel, and even during the recent war. I was always in teams building new projects. The atmosphere and then environment of war or operations is very, very challenging. And it actually has a lot in common with building new ventures and with the startup world. A lot of unknown, most of the things are unknown. The stress is always very high, but the people you work with are always very open-minded, have a lot of imagination, are willing to jump into adventures. So although the background of building a startup is much nicer, I believe that the experience I gained in the past 10 years in building things, in starting from scratch, I call it in facing a completely empty Excel sheet. So I go to my computer, I sit in front of an empty Excel sheet, and I need to start fill it with things that no one can tell me what to fill it with. So this is why when I say I'm a first-time entrepreneur, I always say that I do have experience in building things. But this has led me to start a startup. But when we speak about sustainability, although Israel has many ventures and startups in this sector, it's hard to say that Israel is a leading country in sustainability. You've been here, you know that it's not a thing here at all. And what changed my mind about it was that I spent a semester in Helsinki, Finland, as a student, as a design student. And I saw how the Nordic people live sustainable lifestyle. And that blew my mind because I finally saw that it was possible when people are educated to this kind of lifestyle, when people are curious about it, and when people are willing to spend time sorting waste into 15 different trash bins, then it is possible. I enjoyed so much sorting my waste. For the first time, I had to take like a yogurt cup and to disassemble it to 4 different trash bins. I learned so much about packaging materials. When I came back to Israel, I learned that this behavior is very special to this region and cannot be imported to here and to other many places because We don't have the time to do that. We don't have the energy. We don't have the money. It has to be something that is way more convenient and easy. Sustainability cannot be something that is premium, not only in cost, also in behavior. It has to be something that is very, very simple. This is what led me to think about packaging as something that can be sustainable, but also very convenient. Definitely, growing up in Israel led me to thinking that sustainability doesn't have to be complicated because life is complicated enough.
I want to go back further. How did your mother's sewing machine influence you? Talk to me about creating things on your mother's sewing machine because I read that, that was something you did growing up too.
Right. So when I was in the military, I had a boyfriend, and he told me that I should do something creative during my weekends, so I won't just be busy with operations. I took my mother's old sewing machine. My mom passed away when I was in high school, and this was one of my memory of her. And I couldn't have her teaching me how to sew, so I just used YouTube like everyone. It was before AI. We were just watching YouTube tutorials, and I took a piece of fabric and started sewing it. And I was really amazed on how many things I can create with this sewing machine and old pieces of fabric. I immediately started sewing and I just couldn't stop. My weekends were around creating bags, and my ex-boyfriend lost me because I was only interested in sewing things. I created bags. I created laptop cases, and these super cool cases where you can just drop all of your things inside, like your toothbrush. And then I traveled to India and I created a case for my documents, and I was just suing myself, like all of the ideas I had nonstop. There was something so magical about the ability to create something three-dimensional out of this piece of old fabric that can be useful, that can be used for so many applications. And it was something that I didn't know in myself before I started sewing. I opened a very small business. I started selling these bags to people who were traveling to India, actually, where they have this huge bag and it's their house. They need to have everything inside. So this was my market segment. I didn't know what it's called back then, but this was the market segment I chose. It was a nice business, but it actually led me to the decision to study industrial design. I loved sewing so much, so I thought there had to be more things like that. There actually had to be a degree that teaches you how to turn materials into products that you can use in your daily life that can benefit with you. I read about industrial design and I started the 4-year degree here in Israel with this semester in Finland. And everything I did was around sustainability. I was so curious to see old technologies and techniques, off-grid technologies, and to try to adopt them into modern life. I thought that back in the days when there wasn't electricity, where there wasn't plastic, people still lived very good life. They had cool ways to keep their vegetables fresh. They had cool ways to keep themselves cool and to transition food to transfer food from one place to another. Today, we do it with the very convenient and cheap technologies, but there were other solutions. So, for example, one of my favorite projects in design school was that I learned that in off-grid areas, you can use terracotta, which is clay, to pour water between two layers of clay, and then it does this very cool evaporating. It's amazing, like an off-grid fridge, perfect for fruits and vegetables, keeps them fresh for days. And I created a set of clay bowls for the modern kitchen where you can pour water between the two layers and just place your vegetables inside, and it keeps them fresh way better than the regular refrigerator we have in our kitchen, where temperature is not very good for vegetables. We know it because they get rotten very quickly. I just enjoyed so much learning about traditional technologies and adopt them to modern life. And it's also what I did with Naked Pack.
Yeah, so many things in your last two kind of statements. So there's a company in India, it's called Mitti Cool. I don't know if you've heard of them, but Mitti is clay in Hindi, and they do exactly what you're saying. They kind of create these clay refrigerators and various things out of clay, which is super cool. One of my huge influences was this book, Startup Nation, which talked about the connection between, like, exactly what you were saying in terms of how Israel runs its military and how that influences this whole idea of being self-sufficient and being able to take risks, etc. And of course, like we were talking before about this friend of mine from Israel. And I remember you were talking about India, and that's what came to my mind. So they actually, he had a Belgian girlfriend, and what they did was they took a old Suzuki van. You may have seen these rickety vans in India. They bought that and they modified it. It was so cool that they created a bed at the back that would go up if they wanted a kitchen, because the kitchen was under the bed, and it would go down if they wanted to sit and meditate or something. So they could kind of live in that little van and they would travel with that. And it was fascinating to see how, they were constantly kind of creating ideas. I want to obviously double click on your India experience, and was there influences that came from that when you kind of traveled to India and spent time there? That's more for my personal understanding.
Sure. So of course, India has also it has a big place in my heart. But also, I was so inspired by the people of India because I was there twice. For the first time, I was in northern India in the very touristic places. We went from New Delhi, Agra to Rishikesh, Dharamsala, Amritsar, all these places where Israelis usually visit. And the second time was in Kerala last year, actually, which is completely different. It's in the south, it's by the sea, many cultures and religions, even a Jewish community in Kochi. The difference between the technology, the innovation, and the wealth of some areas in India and the very rural places in the other side of India, they're creating this understanding that you can live both. It's hard, but you can be very connected to nature, live very rural life with your family in a rural village with a small community, have the chicken in your yard or in your farm, grow your food, but you can also live this entrepreneurial life in the vibrant cities in India where high tech grows. You can actually have both. But what I love the most about it is that everyone eats the same food. Everyone eats traditional Indian food based on the region. It doesn't matter how rich you are and how big is your family and what's your job. You always eat the same traditional Indian food because, and what it made me think of is that Indians are very connected to their local culture and habits. One of my friends in Helsinki, in Finland, was from Bangalore, from India, and he didn't like the food in Finland, which is fair. But I'm sorry if there are Finnish people listening to us. It's just different flavors. And he and his wife would cook every day traditional Indian food because this is what they like. This is like the range of flavors they like to eat. So this is the first thing I learned about the people of India. You can change many things, but you don't change the food. And the second thing was to learn that in these rural places, people still live the same off-grid lifestyle like everyone on earth lived years ago. So I saw so many solutions that people built based of what they had. So they didn't have plastic packaging. They didn't have the luxury of using disposable things that are single use because they can't get new supply. What they had is what they had, and they made the most out of it. I bought it to myself, actually, this stainless steel box of 3 levels that you can take with you everywhere, that keeps your food fresh because it's made of metal. So you take the food hot in the morning and it's kept hot until you eat it for lunch. Nothing is single use. Nothing is thrown, nothing is turning into waste when you finish your meal. And even people in very wealthy places, like rich places, they would use this 3 level lunchbox. If you don't have the option to use single use things, you just find other solutions. And then in the Western countries, you think about sustainability as something that is very new and premium and fancy. But that's not true. all these solutions exist because people don't have much. My grandmother has the most sustainable lifestyle because she couldn't afford single-use things. And I think that this is the most important lesson that I learned traveling to India.
So I hope it's not the same person that we are talking about, because I had a very dear friend who taught at Alto. He's an Indian guy and he did exactly that. Even when he only wanted to eat home food, even in India. But of course, the benefit in India is that, the food changes every 100 kilometers. So you do get a lot of variety in the local side, and the taste changes and stuff like that. And there's also community food. So if you come from a certain community, you cook a certain way. And so my neighbor's house may be cooking entirely different food from mine, so I have to be very friendly to quote who we would call auntie, because even if our friend is not there, auntie will feed us, right? So and we knew exactly, because India is so multicultural, we knew exactly where to go in different festivals, right? So if it's Eid, we would go to our Muslim friend's house, and if it's Christmas, we would go to our Christian friend's house. Similarly, within India, there is Sikhs and Jains, and so there is so many different communities. The food changes there as well. So so that's the other thing. But sadly, I know that there is this utopian view, and of course, I have half of my family is American, so I'm always carrying these steel tiffins and the steel cups, because they love it, and they want more of it, and I carry it for them, because you don't get it there. But sadly, it's changing. So what has happened in India also, and you must have noticed it, is that there is a lot of single-use material in small packaging, and that creates even more, because it has to be disposed. So, and it's normally multi-layered polymers. So, so that's a challenge too. I'm going to switch a little bit. How did Brooklyn 99 influence your design thinking? And that's, by the
Wow,
way,
I
that's
feel
that's
like you
one of
know
my
everything.
daughter's favorite shows, and I've never understood it. So you explain it to me.
Okay, for sure. During my days in design school, I was just watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine over and over in the background. I was sitting for hours in front of my computer, and I had to be entertained somehow. So I was watching it over and over, and there was something I loved so much about Andy Samberg. I hope that one day he would listen to me saying that he was just out there. So I love reading and learning about people who did great things. Some of them are in Israel, some of them are out of Israel, and I was curious how Andy Samberg got to create this crazy show that everyone loved. And I learned that him and the other two friends of him, the Lonely Island squad, they were creating videos and sharing them on MySpace, I think, because there wasn't YouTube back then. But every crazy and even stupid video they did, they shared it online. You really need to be brave to do such a thing in the early days of internet, to just share your crazy thoughts online and to see if people react. And they were actually called to SNL by one of the producers. I hope I'm telling the story right, but this is the story I have in my mind. And they became part of SNL to this day, actually, and created so many movies and TV shows and video content that everyone knows in the US and outside the US. And what I learned from Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island guys is that the only way for people to notice you is to share your work and what you do. Because if you don't share it, they will never knock on your door and ask, "Hi, are you here? Can you please show us your work?" There's so many people around the world. They're creating amazing things. How would they know you exist? I think that today with social media, when everyone shares their amazing and also regular moments of their lives, it became easier to be out there. But I'm sure that back then it was very rare. And I told myself, well, you want people to know what you do, you have to share it, even though it's so scary. I was very lucky because when I created Naked Pack as my graduation project in design school, my very talented friends just opened a creative studio to create ads and video content for companies and for influencers, and they added me to their portfolio. So it was for a very attractive price. They were just supporting me. They were very generous, and they created a video for Naked Pack that was just a concept back then, but it looked like an actual ad. And I shared it everywhere. I sent it to everyone. I applied for every award and prize. And then people knew I existed. I was real and I had Naked Pack. And just one thing led to another. Once one company or magazine decided to feature me, a few other magazines already reached out to me and asked to feature me as well. People knew Naked Pack was a thing. People knew Naama Nicotra is someone. I guess this is the only way to do that. I'm not a shy person, but still being out there means that not everyone would love what you do. And most of the feedback I got about Naked Pack was positive because everyone hates plastic, everyone wants to eat healthy food, and Naked Pack was a really fun concept. But also, I got very negative comments because it's not a concept that fits everyone, which is okay. But I was featured on a French magazine, and I don't speak French, so I looked at that and I said, "Oh, nice! I wonder what they wrote about me." I was so excited that I was featured in a cool magazine because I didn't reach out to them; they saw it in another magazine, and then I put it in Google Translate, and that was bad. They were saying it looks like a rotten apple. Why would I eat something that they like? Why would I eat the packaging? This is the most terrible concept I've ever seen. And well, I mean, at least they featured me. I mean, at least people knew Naked Pack existed, even though their thoughts were very, very negative. And for a moment, I was sad. But then I thought, well, I have to be out there, and some people might like it, and some people might
Yeah.
not like it, which is fair. I don't like everything I see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they say that there is no such thing as negative publicity because at least you get to be known, if nothing else. And yeah, that's fascinating. And you've positioned me really well. So you could have done many, many things with your background, with your understanding of design, with your focus on sustainability. Why did you choose to focus on Naked Pack, and how did that come about? And also talk to me along with that on the name. So what was the journey of the name Naked Pack as well, along with why Naked Pack?
Well, it's not a regular name. You cannot just skip when you see the name, which is one of the things we wanted to create. But I'll start with why doing Naked Pack at all. I really don't like packaging. My problem with packaging, or how my therapist would call it, my obsession with packaging, is that I don't buy the packaging, I buy the content. I buy the tomato sauce, I buy the fruits, I buy the rice, I buy the pasta. But I'm stuck with the packaging because once I use the content, the packaging is here and the content is gone. And there is something I don't get it. I mean, I just don't get it. Why would I be stuck with this piece of plastic or aluminum or 4-layer laminate if I don't buy it? I bought the food. It's right about any product in the world, but something about food is even more interesting because even if I choose to buy everything secondhand or local or to do it myself, I have to buy food. And I buy a lot of it because I'm a person and I have a family and we cook a lot. So unless I grow everything in my yard, which I don't have since I live in Tel Aviv, I'll have to buy food, packaged food. And it just didn't make sense. And when I live in Israel, you don't really experience how much packaging you create. But when you sort your packaging in Finland in the cold for 30 minutes a day, separating everything and sorting it into so many bins, you learn that you create so much waste when you cook food, when you buy food. I feel like this is a field that no one wants to get into. because it's hard. It's really hard because food companies want to keep the food fresh, free of bacteria, long shelf life, and very easy to transport and then to use. And then startups who are struggling with creating new innovation, for them it's much easier. I mean, not much easier, it's always hard, but it's easier to get into personal care or home care or things that you don't really consume into your body. There is less market education, there are less changes in the supply chain, you don't have to work so closely, sometimes you do, with the FDA and its equivalent organizations in other regions. But no one wants to deal with food because it's so complicated, because package is designed to keep the food separated from the environment. And if you choose to eat the package, so what keeps it fresh? When I tried to find a solution again as a design student, it was just a concept. It didn't have to exist in real life. I used the same philosophy like with the clay solution. I said, where there were solutions before the fridge was invented, let's search for them. And now I said there were solutions before plastic was invented, let's look at them. So food was transferred and shipped from one place to another in fabric, which is not the scaled solution because fabric is not water resistant, and in clay, which is not very durable because it breaks easily, and then with things that like made of animals, but that's not very ethic and also not scalable. But I looked at fruits and vegetables and I said, well, they're designed by nature. So they were developed for over millions of years. And what we eat today are things that survived over like the last millions of years. And I looked at fruit and vegetables peels and I thought, well, these are the most sustainable food packaging in the world. Think about a tomato peel. It protects the content perfectly, and then you just eat it. No one peels a tomato unless you're a very traditional Italian chef who cooks tomato
Or
sauce.
you are my friend Liad who peels chickpeas for hummus.
Right. But most people, we don't have the privilege to peel tomatoes every day. And I said, well, no one is doubting if a tomato peel is clean or not. We rinse it with tap water. Some people rinse it with soap. Some people don't rinse it at all. I know them. And then we just eat them. We just eat the tomatoes. We don't mind. So I want to create something that is just like a tomato peel for other food products. Something that can protect the content, can be rinsed with water and even with soap, and then you can just eat it. I started to create this concept, again, as a design student, not backed by science, not a good fit for the existing industry, but as an industrial designer, we work a lot to make things that should be desired by people, things that would make them choose this product and not the other product right next to them on the shelf. And this is what I wanted to do, something that would be very cool, very futuristic, and would make people at least want to try it. I created this concept and I had to find a name. And there was a refill grocery store here in Tel Aviv. And the name of the store was Naked Market. And I say proudly that I stole their name. They already closed. I really loved it, and I'm so sad it's closed because now I don't have a refill store near my house anymore. But the name was genius. It's a naked market. All products are naked. You should bring a box from home and refill your rice and your olive oil and your soy sauce and your laundry soap. I stole their name, and I wanted it to be something very radical. So our food is naked. It comes with no clothes on it, no plastic, no paper. It's just naked. And I'm very happy to say that it makes people stop and think. Like, they don't just pass by when they see our name. They're curious to hear how come we sell naked food.
Like, you have no idea how much my mind is blown. I've been in packaging for 26 years, but I'm like, and I keep thinking, and, I always say that, the best packaging is no packaging. Exactly kind of what you said, why packaging is in a way a necessary evil, right? Like you have to store kind of food, or we've gotten used to our conveniences. Exactly what you said before, just 50 years back, our parents or like at least I would say even our parents, at least in my case, my parents, maybe your grandparents, they were going to the store, and my mother, I remember, would go with her bags and would say, "Give me a kilo of this, half a kilo of this," and she would take it in her kind of bags and bring it home, and that was it. So that was the way it was happening. And we are not doing that. What you're blowing my mind with is this whole idea of understanding that, we are using so many fruits, so many vegetables, and we are kind of using it in their packaging. And tomato is a great example of that. And so is so many fruits like apples and, whatever else where we eat the peel, right? So there are so many things that we do with that in mind. But how do you tackle the issue of shelf life? Because that has become so important right now. Because one of the challenges with, you mentioned multi-layered polymers, is that they want to have the food in the shelf for whatever, 6 months, a year, or even 2 years. So is that something that you're looking at, or you're looking at Naked Pack as, okay, certain amount of time is enough. You don't need more than that for food.
So I'll divide it to what we have now and what we want to achieve. Luckily, there are so many products that their shelf lives are not very long and still need to be packed. So imagine bread, fresh produce, even cheese and meat, things that are kind of products that shelf life is really short for them. Think about food service, things that are packed and then are consumed immediately, like sometimes the packaging is used for a few minutes. Where we talked about burekas, like when I buy a pastry, I eat it like in the next 10 seconds. So I asked the baker not to wrap it at all, like hand it to me on a napkin. It doesn't need to be wrapped because I'll eat it in 20 seconds. I promise you, it's fresh. So there are food products that don't really need long shelf life at all. So we're targeting them. But at the same time, we work to improve the shelf life of our packaging film that right now is about to hit 1 year, but we want to get to 18 to 24 months. We know that packaging is used to keep food fresh, and we don't want the packaging film to shorten the shelf life of the food that's inside, because then we did nothing. It's better that the food will be unwrapped at all. We do that by improving the water vapor barrier of the packaging, which is what creates microbial activity to the packaging film and to the food inside. So this is the main thing that we focus on now. But we also understand that on the way to get to the milestone of having a 24 months long shelf life packaging film, there is still so much food we can wrap that does not need this very, very specific shelf life length.
Yeah, you're right. Like there's so many things, and we all see such funny things happen, right? You'll see bananas being wrapped in polyethylene, and funny things where they have great, just because they want to increase the shelf life by whatever, another 5 days or something. So at least in those applications, they can switch to something which is at least sustainable, if they really do want to wrap bananas in stretch film or whatever. What came to my mind is very interesting, and we were talking earlier before we hit record, is connecting you with other people. You have to connect with another one of really bright young people, and I don't know if you already know her. She runs a company, again, a startup called Tasty Tape. And she does, again, similar edible packaging with psyllium husk. So she uses psyllium husk, and she's created, again, very interesting stuff. And I went to her lab in New York and we hung out, but super bright. And I think you guys can co-create a lot. So again, her understanding started with wrappers, how burritos would be wrapped, and they could be wrapped better, and you could eat the packaging, and that would be good for you too. So that was very interesting. So not only have you chosen to package the product, you've created products. So why is that? Because the food is a totally different ball game, right? You get into so many regulatory landscapes, etc., etc. So what made you go that direction? That not only am I going to provide packaging, I'm going to provide the food with it. What brought that thesis about?
So I think that this is probably the weirdest path to choose, because CPG is such a complicated world without the technology and bringing a new product to the market and everything else. But what we learned, me and my co-founder, that I haven't mentioned yet, but I should, Isabel, my co-founder and CTO.
How did you find your co-founder? Let's add that to this conversation.
Perfect. So Isabel, my incredible co-founder, she's the CTO of the company, 20 years in the flexible packaging industry. She's a packaging expert. She led so many processes and projects of recycled materials, eliminating forever chemicals, and she really knows how traditional and margin-based the packaging industry is. So it is very, very complicated to bring innovation into this traditional industry. Everything is by the cent, by the penny, and all of the industry is designed for traditional materials. So if we change something, it has to fit very well with everything that already exists in the facilities. If we need to bring a new machine or to create a new line, that won't work. That won't scale. No one likes to change. So first, Naked Pack, of course, fits existing production lines, which was for us a big challenge, but the only way to get in the market. So Naked Pack is heat sealable, can function in vertical and horizontal machines. But what we learned over the past 2 years and starting to work on Naked Pack is that to sell the packaging material only, it will take us years. Why? Because sales cycles for food companies of a new ingredient is just very slow. We change the process, we do POCs, then we do pilots, then we see if there are any technical challenges, then we see if there are any operational challenges, then we do testing and tasting groups, then we try to sell it on the shelves, and only there, if we see success, then we start selling the product in masses. But everything I described now can take easily 5 years. And for a startup, 5 years is forever. What we learned is that although food companies are interested, they can only offer us this 5 years process. People are ready for products like Naked Pack. People look for microplastic free, sustainable, and very easy to use solutions that don't require operating a home compost, which is very complicated and takes a lot of effort and knowledge. And then we had to decide if we want to take this obvious B2B path and start to create these POCs and pilots with food companies, or to go directly to the people. And we choose the second option, because with the second option, we can launch a product in a year from now, which shorten the time to market for us in like 80%. And to start communicating with people, do you like to cook the package? Is it too weird for you to cook something that is like plastic? Did you feel there was any effect on the flavor? Because there is no effect on the flavor, but people still might experience a change because now they eat it. What kind of food content do you want inside? In which use cases you use it? Do you take it when you go out? Do you take it to the office? Do you cook it at home? When we start selling it to people, we create this market pool of people that are interested in Naked Pack. We create a revenue stream for our company, so we don't need to rely on investors' money. We do need investors' money to scale, to grow, to do more innovation, of course, but in these days of AI-only market, we can still have some security. And then to work with food companies, but when we already have this market pool, this evidence, this validation of people using Naked Pack. Since Naked Pack fits existing co-packing lines, working with food company and working with a co-packer to wrap our own food under the name of Naked Pack is not that different. From a technical point of view, from operations and then the cost and everything, of course, this is a completely new company, but the product is the same, the technology is the same. But we chose a different business model. And the reason we chose it is that because we saw amazing packaging technology companies die because the customers don't come. The food companies are not willing to take this brave step. And I understand that. They don't know if the people in the end are really interested. So we start with the end and then we go back to the start.
You're giving me ideas. We need to start a whole food line, but that's for a different conversation. But you're also adding two complications, right? One is that food is much more regulated, so you are putting yourself in that situation. Second is that your packaging may be great, but what happens if a consumer doesn't like your food? Then you're also adding one more layer of complication in that. They won't buy like the pasta behind you. They may not like the texture, the taste, whatever. So in that case, aren't you adding a certain complication as well in terms of regulation and taste?
So we are creating, I would call it a double risk and a double chance. There's a double risk of people not liking the content, but there is a double chance that we actually have customers that can provide us with amazing feedback and again to keep the business going. So we work from a food innovation lab. We sit there, we develop the product there, and we are surrounded by the most talented food technologists in Israel. We're very lucky to have them around us, so they help us create the recipes. There will not be many recipes. We'll have one or two SKU food products, and they will be delicious because this is our promise to the people once we're a food brand and not just a packaging company. So yes, it adds more complication, but it's also bring us so many opportunities. We just cannot say no to that. And regarding regulation, actually this part doesn't add complication because our packaging is food. So we are already under very heavy food regulation. The content does not change that.
Interesting. But you could have always positioned it as, people may use it as food or people may not use it as food, right? It's a customer's choice, right? They may still remove the packaging and throw it away, which is good. It'll still become compost or disintegrate, or they might boil it with the packaging, like you said before, in terms of, if it doesn't alter the flavor, or at least they don't realize that it alters the flavor. Or it alters the flavor in a good way. That could be another angle, right? You can alter the flavor in a positive way. That it actually adds to the flavor. But from my side, you are adding a complication in terms of at least the regulators would consider it both then a food and a packaging. So we are reversing the idea that I asked you before, food regulation, but now you're also governed by packaging regulation. So what happens then?
Right. So I have here my instruments to show that the reason we want to start with, there are many reasons why we start with the US market. One of the reasons is the FDA and the way it works. So we base all of our cases on an edible packaging that we all know, which is pills that are wrapped with edible coating that we just consume. It's not like we're creating a new concept. It's just that we're taking an existing concept and now selling it as another product, as another application. We have two ways to sell our products. So the first way is to sell it in bulk, just like you buy fruits and vegetables today, just like you buy food in refill stores, where the food is exposed to the environment, but there are certain products that can be sold like that. And in that way, we're sold only as food, like our packaging film is considered food, and you need to rinse the package film before you consume the product. And then the second option is to sell Naked Pack as a bundle. So a bundle of 6 or 12 individual portions that are wrapped with a secondary packaging, which is made of our material as well. So you take the outer packaging when you get home, you put it in the sink, you pour hot water on it, and it's gone. And then you have 12 meals of Naked Pack that you can put in a box or in your pantry and to take it out anytime you want. And in that way, our packaging is considered food, just like a vegetable or a fruit peel that protects but has to be rinsed before you consume it.
The other thing which is remarkable in your concept, and I'm sure you've thought about it, is that so much of damage comes from the acrylics and the printing. Here, what you're also doing is you're controlling that. So, but of course, as a packaging, you have to print so much information on it. So tell me how you're solving for that, because there will be different regulation. The US has complex regulation on what all you have to mention, etc., etc. Of course, people also use packaging, and I'm going to club this with this question. People also use packaging as branding and advertising. So how would you solve that? The lovely package behind you is black, hopefully algae ink, but I'm sure you've looked at numerous ideas there. And how would you solve that challenge of branding? And how are you thinking about other things like different kind of so many chemicals go on top of the packaging, right? So of course you have more control there. So talk to me a little more about that.
Sure. So the first thing we did is to make sure that we can print on the packaging. So we can, here I brought a sample where you can see the logo and all of the information. We can also print the nutritional information, the allergens, everything is that is required can appear on the packaging. We use natural dyes, edible dyes that are, of course, approved and can be consumed and can be cooked and boiled. They don't add flavor. But now, as a designer, I had to think about the brand appearance and how much text and color should be on it. And I think that the best example for that is our pasta here behind me and Barilla's box. Because you see Barilla when you get in the supermarket from the other side. You can go directly to the blue box and you don't see any other brand because Barilla is blue box pasta. But we create here something different. And transparency is not just a word here, it is literally transparent. The packaging you can see through. The more transparency we show, the easier it is to explain why Naked Pack is completely edible and safe to consume, and why we're completely transparent with our consumers so they know exactly what the packaging is made of, and why is it safe to consume, and why does it look like plastic. Because maybe if we created something that looks a bit different, it will be easier to eat it because then you don't feel like you eat polymers. But to the point, we don't want to overprint on the packaging because first, it will dye the food. I mean, you'll get blue pasta. And second, because we know that our consumers want to eat something that is clean. They don't want to eat something that, well, you see all of the dyes mix into your food and it can create a lot of trust challenges. So there are many ways to fight it on the shelves, not to fight it, to deal with it on the shelves. And what I like the most is the fact that most people purchase food online. And online, you don't need a pretty packaging. It just doesn't matter. You need a pretty box on the platform, and that's enough. It doesn't matter. This is how you choose your food. And you need to get something that is really aesthetic because you would not cook something that looks gross. But this is not how you choose the product. And then in physical supermarkets that still exist, and I believe they will stay here. Some people really like to see the food, some people like to take it off the shelves. And there are different types of food that people like to buy from physical supermarkets. For example, frozen food. You want to keep it frozen. So 90% of the frozen food in the US is bought from physical supermarkets because people don't want it to just sit outside their door until they're back from war. And then in physical supermarkets, there are many, many ways to advertise Naked Pack without printing on the packaging. It really depends on where and how you sell it, with which instruments. I still like in this aspect to compare us to fruits and vegetables. When you choose an apple, you choose an apple that looks like with a very nice color, that looks undamaged, like perfect. Some people are attracted to Pink Lady and some to the Smith. And there are many things that make fruits and vegetables aesthetic. And this is the same thing with Naked Pack. We want it to look very clean, very transparent, very safe to consume, not damaged. And I think that this is more important than having like very strong colors on it. It's just not the message of our product. It's the message of other products and it works perfectly.
In a way, you're also differentiating yourself and challenging it, and like exactly what you said, appearing kind of more open, transparent, minimalistic. So, so that's another angle from a design standpoint also, that you are a minimalist kind of idea. So I guess, that also makes sense to the customer. We would like to take a minute to thank our sponsors. Good Garbage is sponsored by Paka, a family of brands that produces compostable packaging and works to implement regenerative solutions. Paka's new project is to bring compostable food serviceware and food carry products to the North American marketplace. Learn more at paka.com. Now back to the conversation. Okay, I'm going to shift to materials. So, how did you concoct the right balance? Because you didn't want taste. I've tasted enough algae based packaging. I've hung out with the not flour people. We have a great company in India. I've tried their material. It doesn't have taste, but it does have texture, right? So I guess you're dealing with that complexity. So how did you decide, okay, this is my material, this much catagens or whatever you used, so how did you concoct the exact recipe for the packaging? And does the recipe also differ from food to food?
That's a fantastic question. So, what we chose is to divide food into three categories: dry food, dry staple groceries, frozen food, and fresh chilled food. Why? Because each one of these products today with traditional materials has very specific materials that can wrap it. Frozen food is usually with plastic. Dry staple food has a larger variety of materials that can wrap it, and fresh chilled food is completely different. So we learned that our lowest hanging fruit is dry staple food. This is why the recipe that we work on now and is patent pending fits dry food. Not always, but we know the environment where dry food sit and not only during supply chain, also at your house. Then frozen food is completely different. There are temperature ranges that are much, much bigger. Frozen environment is very humid. And then chilled food is something else. Usually it has very short shelf life. Usually chilled food is very wet, and products can reduce different damage to the packaging. Anyway, we decided to start with dry food. And then, as you know, there are so many packaging types in the world, and sometimes they differ with like a different ratio of the polymers or the different layers in the laminate for a specific use case. And the use case that we wanted to choose is food that is boiled, rather in a pot or in the microwave. Why? We wanted the packaging to be durable on the shelf, and also packaging that can be rinsed under tap water. Means that the trigger to the solubility of the packaging cannot be connecting with water, like touching water. It has to be something a bit more complicated. So we wanted to find something that is very common in the kitchen, but very rare outside of the kitchen. So everyone can do it, but the packaging will dissolve only when the user wants it to dissolve. And what we found is boiling water. Boiling water is in every kitchen. Even if you don't have a stove, you can boil water in your microwave. And if you don't have a microwave, a kettle, or stove, then it's not a kitchen. Then you need to find a place to cook your food. So you're not a client for us. I'm kidding, but you have at least one of these. And hot water above 85 Celsius or 185 Fahrenheit degrees is something that is very rare in supply chain, on retailer shelves. So it is very likely that the packaging will not be damaged until you cook it. It means that we limit ourselves, at least for now, until we find other triggers, only to boiled or cooked food. But there is so much cooked food in the world, so much. dry food, frozen food, fresh food. We cook so many things, so many types of food are touching water that are very, very hot. So we're not worried about lack of applications. We actually try to limit them all the time and focus on very specific applications. And then we worked with many, many materials, but the specific algae material that we use today is a material that dissolves only in hot water and is completely durable in other environments. This is why we chose it. So it works great on wrapping lines. It performs great sealing. It can get the printing. And then, as you said, the only problem is the texture. And here I'll share very little because this is basically our IP, but there are other materials that we use that help us with not changing the texture of the food. So we know that this is very important to people, so they will continue eat it. And we know that different food types get different textures. So we work with the food types that are more kind to our product. And then as we scale and have other applications and other solutions, we can expand the type of food products we can wrap. So this is how we deal with it. Algae is an amazing material. The second reason we chose it, not for a technical reason, but more for an ethical reason. Edible packaging has to be made of food because it's edible. And when you use food ingredients that can feed people, and instead of using them to feed people, you use it to wrap products, you prevent people from access to food. There is so much hunger in the world. If we choose different grain or, plant-based products that can be used to feed people, we don't contribute anything to the human population on Earth. We just take from the people who are already in danger of hunger. What I like about the algae that we use is that if we don't use it for that, it's not really used, or it cannot be used as a proper food product. It can be used as an ingredient that helps with different food product challenges, but we don't prevent people from access to food. And this is what I love about algae, and this is why I have so much respect to companies that are using algae for their products and not actual food.
And how easy or difficult is it to source materials, the base materials that you're looking for? And of course, right now you are at a smaller scale, but I'm sure you're looking for building the right sourcing strategy and supply chain. Are you seeing that as a difficulty, or at least for now, the way you project the future, you're going to have enough of those base materials available so that you can scale the organization?
Sure. So this is one of the main things we researched when we started to create something that is scalable. So we learned that the materials that we use are widely used today in different industries. So there is no shortage of them. Like all plant-based or let's say natural product, different batches have different quality, are in different quality, but it's the same when you buy tomato today and tomato tomorrow. They might not be the same. This is also the magic about using natural products. But we now build partnerships with the growers. We use farmed algae, so the growers and the distributors of this algae. So we know that we have enough partnerships in the supply chain so we don't run out of it, because again, I believe that creating a sustainable solution that is not scalable, that is usually the problem, of course. Things that work great in lab or in small scale, but have difficulties in growing, it is not very sustainable. In the other way, you can use sustainable, something that can remain for long years.
So there are a lot of algae kind of based packaging companies that are emerging. Is there a difference in formulation from them, and how is it different? Is it say if you talk about Notpla or Sway, they both have very different formulations actually. So would yours be different from those, or it's very similar to say a Notpla kind of formulation?
So it is different. The main difference is that we use a completely different manufacturing process, And for that, we need a completely different formulation. So it fits this manufacturing process. Again, we create films in roll stocks that can replace plastic films on co-packing lines and that dissolve only in hot water. Because of that, our formulation is very, very different from theirs. As much as we know, of course, we know only from what they share or patented. So we can learn from them. But some of the algae-based packaging companies use them for non-edible applications. So they usually choose also other types of materials because the edible materials are more expensive, more sensitive, and require a different regulation, different facility. So everyone who does a non-edible packaging film, they use completely different materials from ours, and our very close competitors with edible soluble packaging materials are using a different manufacturing process, thus different materials. Because remember that algae is only one component, it's the main one, but there are always a few other components that add the flexibility, the sealing, the sealability, the printability that play a very major role in what kind of film you get and what can you do with it, which kind of products you can wrap with it, on which machines, and that changes everything. It means that there is no overlap between two companies because once we cannot use the same wrapping machines, we cannot wrap the same food. This is why I'm not worried about competitors. There is so much plastic to replace, there is so much waste to eliminate, and there is so much food around the world. It's just that it seems that if three companies operate in the same space, that's a lot. But how many packaging companies are in the US only? How much packaging used every day like on Walmart shelves? There is so much plastic to replace. So I really feel like, at least today, from the atmosphere today, there is definitely room for everyone operating in this very, very challenging space, and there should actually be more companies doing that. So we actually can scale globally and replace more materials.
Yeah, there's so much more power and collaboration than competition. And you'll find that, as you go get more into the space and you meet many people, most of us come from that collaborative mindset that, okay, how do we enable the other person to succeed? So that's the typical mindset that you'll find in this domain, because all of us are coming from most of us are coming from that purity of heart that we want to do something good. So that, but obviously the added complication that you didn't mention is also there are many kinds of algae. Forget the addition to algae, but obviously you have to choose, where are you, how are you sourcing the type of algae? And, like I mentioned, carrageenans, but then there are other kind of materials that people use, and that's its own kind of challenge. So adding on to the product side, so how are you looking at building? Do you want to only supply it to Naked Pack as a food company, or are you going to separate it? If I want to build a food company out of Naked Pack's packaging material, are you going to separate those two divisions where you say, okay, I'm going to supply the Naked Pack food and I'm going to supply the Naked Pack packaging if somebody else wants to package? How are you separating those?
Sure. So it's our roadmap. I mean, our plan is to start very quickly with selling Naked Pack as a food brand. So the entire thing, the content and the packaging as our brand. And then later, when technology allows, when we're ready to do that, when we have enough feedback and we did enough, we iterate enough with the consumer feedback we got, to do partnerships. So partnerships will be your food, our packaging, but under a co-branded collaboration. In that way, we can still control the wrapping line, like the co-packing lines, but already start to experience how is it like to sell Naked Pack as a packaging ingredient only. Why this phase is so important to us? So we spoke with a few food companies that work with edible packaging materials or sustainable packaging materials, and they kept mentioning the technical problems that they had on their own co-packing lines when they purchased the packaging material only. And then we started to discuss what if there was an option that we will wrap the food and you will get the complete product with your name on it, white label style, for your private label. And they said that this could actually solve them many, many, many problems, because then the technology challenges and problems are on our side. If there is loss, it's our loss, not their loss. If there is a machine that is stuck, we need to fix it. They don't need to fix it. Working with food companies, you usually have one chance. So if you screw this chance, you don't get many more. They just don't want to work with you anymore, even if your material is improved. And when we do this co-branded partnership on our wrapping lines, our collaborators get a complete product. They don't experience all of the technical problems that we will probably have because it's a new material. And then from there, once we have enough successful partnerships, we will start to license our packaging material only. So it will be over time. I assume we will always keep a specific niche D2C angle, so we can test new products. For example, you said, what if the film itself had flavors, which is an option, a very exciting one. So we can continue with the communication, which is very direct with the consumer, but we can also scale our operations and scale our sales. We know that the real impact is with selling the packaging material only. It's the way to replace as much plastic as possible. But we also know that we don't start there. We get there, but we start where we get the most impact from the consumer and we can actually build a profitable business.
And I personally feel it's an absolutely mind blowing smart strategy because otherwise, what happens is that you get restricted by the choices of the food company. By giving the final product, you're connecting with the direct customer. And I think it's mind blowing what you're doing in terms of understanding that. Okay, let's get to the customer because then the food companies and the co-packers get influence. So that's super smart. I'm definitely excited about that aspect. One of the things that we always face as packaging people is the cost challenges, and I'm sure you face it as well, especially somebody who's kind of evolving as an organization, because in the end, the customer, you're on the shelf, then the customer is going to compare you with another company. Of course, there's an excitement to the new kind of package. I remember this is way before your time probably, but in the 80s, the Tetra Pak came out, and we were so excited. There's a juice in a box, and so it was such a huge thing. I remember my aunt sent it from Mumbai to our little town in a whole case of it, and we were just like, this is amazing. So you are creating something like that, where there is that value of this is amazing. We can just put it straight into the boiling water and our food is done, and it'll transform, and it does have the potential to transform. But as you kind of get into the as you scale, you will have that challenge of cost. How are you looking at that? Because also you're adding food to that cost. So in a way, you're controlling cost a little bit, but you're also adding another complication. So how do you look at cost overall when your food is sitting next to another food of similar variety?
It's always a question of volumes, right? The more you produce, the less you pay. The strategy should start with small quantities for premium products and there are larger quantities for commodity products. It means that when we start, we cannot wrap regular commodity cheap products because we cannot compare with the price of the entire product. But if we find an angle, a segment, a niche market where the content is expensive enough, there we don't really need to have a super cheap price for our packaging material. And I'll give an example. Our go-to market is to sell Naked Pack for the outdoor enthusiasts in the US, backpackers, campers, everyone who goes outdoor, climbers, for many reasons. One is that we actually solve them a very functional problem. They carry so much waste in their backpack and they're willing to be as lightweight as possible. So we can actually let them be very, very lightweight. Nothing left after they cook. The second thing is that it's a very innovative market. This market is very open to new products. They love to try, they love to take it outdoors. So it's not traditional at all. Full of innovation from the food and other aspects as well. And the third thing is that they pay $12 to $15 per meal today. So it's not $1 pasta, it's, let's say, $13 instant meal, freeze dried, rich in calories, rich in protein, that is wrapped with a 4-layer laminate pouch that has Ziploc, and the packaging only is so expensive. And there we can add value, we can solve a problem, and we can completely compete with the prices today. We don't create a new premium category. We get into an existing premium category and actually have a very interesting value proposition. It means that even when we're early stage, we can compete with existing prices. And then as we scale, the price, of course, drops because it's always like that in volumes, especially when you have outsourced manufacturing where you acquire more lines. And then we can wrap more and more food products. So we start with something that is very expensive, then we move to things that are less expensive. And as we scale and the price drops, we can wrap, let's say, less expensive food products. The second thing is that regulation today makes traditional materials just less attractive. Plastic is not as cheap as it used to be because of supply chain, but also because heavy regulation, EPR, and other credits, fines, fees, different strategies to convince manufacturers to use sustainable alternatives. So it's not anymore that plastic is super cheap and sustainable solutions are super expensive. They actually now get closer to each other, which is very exciting. And the third thing is, again, that there are many, many types of packaging products. Each one of them fit different food products. So at the moment, we cannot compete with one layer polyethylene or even a laminate that is based on polypropylene. But we can compete with 4-layer laminate that is already in pouch or bio-based or compostable packaging. So the long term is, of course, to replace cheap plastic, but it doesn't. We don't have to start there to get to the market and scale.
I think that's such a brilliant strategy to look at the outdoors market because you mentioned about the usability, but it's also that people who are outdoors are more sustainability focused. So one is of course usability, that they don't have to carry all the rubbish, they don't have to collect all that, but also you're tapping into a mindset which is also already oriented towards nature. So I think that's a really smart strategy. The other challenge which I'm sure you're thinking about, it's not easy to get onto the shelves of these bigger markets. So of course, maybe not now, but in the future you'll have to do that. How do you look at, transcending that challenge where you want to get onto a Whole Foods or something like that? Well, Whole Foods may be easier, but you want to get onto a Target or a Safeway or something like that. So how do you transcend that challenge where they are ready to keep you on their shelves and don't charge you a pretty penny? You're not wanting to pay 60% kind of premium on that. So how are you looking at that?
So I think that the privilege of building a new venture is that you get to choose your partners. You get to choose partners that believe in your mission and that understand how a business can be built out of it. When I started working on Naked Pack, I didn't think about money. I thought only about the mission. In the past 2 years, I learned that the more Naked Pack we sell, the more equal, the more money we make, equal, the more plastic that is eliminated. So if we actually want to replace plastic, we have to be an amazing business. We have to make so much money. We have to have valid business model that generate revenues as soon as possible, because if we don't do that, we're not able to replace plastic and nothing will change in the market. So to your question, the answer is that we are building partnerships with distributors, with retailers, with manufacturers, those who can get us to the shelves and that truly believe in our mission, like any aspect of it, that believe that this can be a great business, that believe that people are looking for that believe that the marketing can be fun and great. Some people like us because they think that marketing for a product called Naked Pack is so much fun, and believe that people will actually buy it and they get their own let's say, credits from that. A retailer or a company that wants to work with us can claim so much because they work with this ultra radical sustainable packaging solution. They have their commitments, they have the regulation, they have their fees and fines. So this is like the free marketing we get. That if someone wants to work with us, they can actually have very good, not only PR, but also good business out of it.
Absolutely, I agree. And it'll be a challenge that you'll cross when you get to it. Just a couple of questions more on the product. You mentioned that, okay, right now your focus is on food that needs to be boiled, and that's perfectly a great target to get into. And, the product can be optimized for that. In the beginning, in passing, you also said that you're working towards WETR and things like that. So, one of the things that has always been challenging for me is to see so much of these products on the shelves. Like, we won't even get into the snack foods of potato chips and stuff because that's so much. But it needs a huge, like they're talking about zero point 0.5 WETR and OTR and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Even nuts and cookies and things that don't need as high a WETR, or sorry, I should explain water vapor transmission rate for the audience. What about things like that? How would you solve that challenge? Because that's like again the big elephant in the room, right? How do you create the right barriers? And in that case, what would the thesis be in terms of edible kind of, because they may not want to eat it, right? They may just want to eat the nuts or the snack and that's it. How would you solve for that?
The way we ask this question is, what is the trigger that makes the packaging disappear? Now the answer is hot water, but then it is limited to food that is cooked in hot water. And then what could be other triggers that make packaging disappear? It's an open question. I leave it to the people who listen to the podcast. If you have ideas, please email me. I'd love to hear them. If you think about something that can make the packaging disappear in your kitchen, outdoor, in the shower, we are trying to find more and more triggers, and then we can actually expand our food products portfolio. For example, acidity is a very good trigger because it actually makes many types of packaging disappear. But we can't ask people to squeeze a lemon on a packaging every time they want to disappear. So we're looking for things that are a bit more casual, that are easy to find, and that are also sustainable. Because if you use, I don't know, toxic materials or very materials that are are very chemical, it will make the packaging disappear in a second. But again, we don't add value to the world. So an open question. We think about it every day.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like what you mentioned, you can even package the catalyst inside the package, right? Like you have these silicone thingies for moisture. You kind of put the catalyst in, and all the person needs to do is maybe sprinkle it on the packaging later or something like that. So yeah, that's one idea for you. I'm sure you've already thought about it, but that'll be amazing, right? And I like basically the standpoint that the packaging must disappear, and it comes from a sustainable source and it disappears in the end. So kind of you're looking at it end to end, both sides of that. I just have one more question. When you're choosing foods, are you also looking at sustainability there and health, both of those? Because what happens is that so much of our food is ultra processed today, and a lot of the pastas will be just like refined wheat, and there are so many great food companies coming in today with more millets and buckwheat and all of that. Are you also looking at that as a naked pack kind of offering, or you're not worried about that so much, sourcing of the food and also the quality of the food for health reasons?
The answer is that our top priority is to work with food brands and manufacturers that are responsible, that sell healthy food. It's not only a choice of our message and standards as a brand, it's also what our potential consumers are looking for. If someone is aware enough to buy a naked product, a naked back wrapped product, they probably care about the content as well. They don't care only about the packaging. It's our DNA as a company, but also a very obvious business choice. But I also know that we cannot afford, again, as a business model, to limit ourselves. because our mission is to eliminate plastic. And if a food that is less healthy or less sustainable is wrapped with plastic, the least we can do is to provide people with microplastic free, less healthy food. So I guess it's a mix of both. We would always prefer to work with brands with identity that matches our identity, but we will not stop a collaboration with a company with less healthy food, because I think it's unfair for the end consumer to have the opportunity to eat food with less plastic and then to cancel it because of this reason. So I know that it didn't really answer the question, but
No,
this
no,
is
you
how
totally
these are
did.
my
I
thoughts
would go
about
the
it.
other way. I'm saying,
Mhm.
like, I think you totally did. I think you've prioritized it, right? So right now the challenge is, okay, let's change the packaging and let's not get stuck on, okay, the consumer is already eating what they're eating. If your focus is clear, okay, you at least remove the microparticles and the challenges with packaging, and then yes, you keep moving on the healthier direction, etc., etc. And I'm sure it'll evolve as you grow and you kind of see what the response is, etc. And I'm sure since you're coming from a sustainability outlook, you'll anyways be concerned about what people are putting into their bellies. But I agree with you. You don't control everything, right? In the sense that you can control the one thing and then see how it evolves. Okay, switching gears completely. How difficult or easy has it been to find the right funding and to be able to position yourself well so that there are enough investors coming in? What has that process been like for you?
It's the first time I fundraise, so it is very hard to compare to other experiences. And I think that no entrepreneur in history said it was easy, but we, right? I mean, everyone keeps saying how hard it is. I think that the biggest challenges we had along the way are the fact that first AI takes over the attention of investors. There are so many AI incredible technologies that will change humanity forever that are evolving now, that agnostic investors are really attracted to them, which I understand. AI changes everything, and it changes the funding opportunities as well. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that in the past few months, many food tech and packaging technology companies ceased operations, and it made investors very unattracted, like they're not attracted to invest in these sectors anymore, which I also understand. There aren't enough amazing exits to justify more and more heavy investments in that field. That being said, people are still terrified of microplastic. People still believe that we should change the way we consume food and packaging for the next generations. And the third thing is that we created something very different on our website that you're welcome to visit, www.nakedpack.com. We show something that is fun, that is easy, that is, I think, sexy with Naked Pack and the colors and everything, and shows a very different attitude. We changed it. We worked with an amazing brand designer on that for a few months, and before that, we had the technology website showing the opportunities and why the solutions that exist today are not scalable, and why we're amazing with our faces on it, like co-founder, something that was very traditional. And it just wasn't us. What we do is something fun. And we wanted the website to be fun as well. So I can say that the investors we already have on board, and the investors that are interested in Naked Pack, are investors that enjoy supporting us because they think this is a fun product that people would be happy to have and use, and will share it on TikTok and show that the packaging disappears and it will be everywhere, and people will not be able to find it, like the rice paper during COVID, like this kind of thing, because there is something so magical about it. And if we limit it to packaging technology, we save you EPR fees. This is something that you don't need to rely on specific waste stream to use it. It's just not us. And we have an advisor that I love so much. His name is Conrad, and he hates plastic. He says he's allergic to plastic. He would pick up plastic packaging from the street. He always says that his wife is so embarrassed. He once told me, I'm with Naked Pack because Naked Pack is fun. I enjoy working on it. I have so many ideas. I really see how people will use it and share it with their family and friends. And I think that this is the secret sauce of our funding. We try to explain why Naked Pack is fun and not why it saves you a few cents or even saves the world. We just explain why doing something sustainable and better for you can also be really great.
I think it's a great position to have, and I'm sure it'll attract people. You're sitting on something which is very powerful. So I guess the right investors will come along as you kind of move forward. Okay, all good conversations have to come towards an end. So my last three. What are the biggest challenges that you find that you're facing today?
As I like to say, do you have 1 hour to listen to all of the challenges we have? No, I'm kidding. The way the market is operating today, it is very hard to show market pool, scalability, credibility, manufacturing opportunities before the market is on the shelves. So I think is what we struggling the most with is to explain our vision before it exists. I'm not the only one. I mean, all startups need to share their vision when there is still only a presentation or only a prototype or only a pilot, but it is hard. It is hard to share, to show, and to convince that this plan we built will work completely, like seamlessly. I'm sure that it won't work seamlessly, right? Like everything in life. But I know that once we have our first product shipped to our first consumer, it will change. There will be new challenges, but this challenge of convincing thing that hasn't been proved yet, it is the biggest challenge now. And what we try to do is to validate each part separately. So our next challenge will be to connect all the dots. For example, we have a co-packer. We have a wait list of people that want to buy Naked Pack the moment it's in the market. We have a few partnerships we're building with food manufacturers and with the film manufacturers. And then the challenge is to connect all of the dots, but we at least have some of them and soon all of them. So yes, I think that's it. Among other challenges as well.
I'm sure there will be many, but at least, it's one by one. Like you said, when you go to scale, then it'll be a different challenge. But that's the fun of entrepreneurship as well. And I always say, as entrepreneurs, we are very free people. Why we are free is because we can't blame anyone. So everything it's fine. Like I have to learn, I have to get it right. It's fine. Like the responsibility is 100%. So it's very freeing that way because you have nobody to blame. If things go wrong, well, okay, we messed up. We are going to sort it the next time round or whatever. If you were gazing in a crystal ball and nothing was stopping you, no barriers. In 5 years' time, where would you see Naked Pack?
So in 5 years' time, we are wrapping 50 different brands food in the US with Naked Pack appearing on the packaging itself. So people know that what they eat is Naked Pack. So it is trusted by them. And shelves are getting more and more full with edible hot water soluble packaging. So this is becoming a standard. People are searching for that on the shelves. I have a true belief that this will happen.
Okay, my final question. What does good garbage mean to you?
Wow, a very complicated question, but this moment when you go to the trash bin and you throw something and you say, "Oh my God, what fish will eat it when it gets in the ocean? Which carrot will contain microplastic because of what I throw?" And then there are these moments when you throw to the bin regular stuff and you say, "Ah, that's okay." So For me, good garbage is something that I throw and I'm completely guilt free with what is going to happen in the future to this piece of waste. I'm completely convinced that it's okay to throw it, and wherever it gets, through the recycling facility or to a industrial compost that does not exist in Israel, or to the landfill, which is likely the option, or to the ocean, no harm will be done. This is good garbage for me.
Well said. It's just been such a joy, Nama, to speak to you. I do think that you're sitting on something so powerful. I'm literally a fan already, about what you're doing, and I'm kind of rooting for your success because it's a whole ecosystem that you're building. And I love the idea that you've not just said, I'm going to be a packaging company. I'm going to prove it with the food and I'm going to tackle the whole thing. You're taking up something that's more complex, but it's also the way to make change. So I think that's been really powerful for me to learn from you, to understand how you're going about it. And we are right there all the way with you to be able to support you to build Naked Pack. So thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for taking the time. More than anything else, thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I have a surprise for you. I just got my Indian lunchbox with me. The best way to wrap your lunch and take it to work. It's not microwavable, but it keeps everything fresh and it's completely reusable. So thank you for
Awesome.
reminding me of
And
the
they normally
lunchbox.
and they normally put a insulation on top. So you're right. The food remains hot
Right,
too.
right.